So, welcome Emilio, Damien. Huh? So I will go ahead and begin. I imagine there may be more people coming either in Saladana or online over the next few minutes. For those of you who are new, which may be a couple people, even without masks, I don't recognize everybody, so must be some new people. My name is Jim, and I'm currently in, yeah, thank you, Juan, in San Francisco, California, Estados Unidos. And lately we've been just saying our name into the room. I hope that's okay with everyone. So maybe starting at Saladana. I think there's one person I can't quite see over to the side of the standing Buddha, but maybe we could start with her. I think it was a her. You can just say your name.
Can you hear it, Jim?
No, it was very low.
Yeah, so people will have to come to the computer for you to hear them.
Okay, or maybe Martina, you could just repeat their name if that's okay.
So the first person that I don't think that you can see, it's Anna.
Anna, okay. Hi, Anna.
Vera. So the next person is Vera, and I believe
Vera, okay, welcome.
Vera's first time in the room.
Ah, well, welcome.
And then there's Fabio.
Fabio,
also a first timer here.
okay. Welcome, Fabio.
And Ricky.
Ricky, okay. I have a brother named Ricky. Welcome, Ricky.
Also first time here.
That's it.
What's your name?
It's Nacho. You know that.
I didn't get it. Oh, Nacho, yeah, I know Nacho. I haven't seen you without a mask for so long, I didn't know what you look like.
Oh, by the way, are we supposed to wear masks?
What's that?
Are we supposed to wear masks in the room?
No, it's optional. If you want to wear a mask, you can, but you don't have to.
Okay. I'm Martina. Nice to meet you.
Martina, yeah, thank you for your service.
We have Juan back there.
Juan and
Linda.
Linda, okay, very good, thank you.
Also first time here.
Oh, wow.
We have
Maybe the
people.
Tourist season is starting, so we're getting maybe some tourists, huh? And then online, going in alphabetical order with the first name.
I'm Damien.
Hello, Damien.
It's Emilio here in Madrid.
Hello, Emilio. Welcome. And Gore, I think you're next. You need to unmute yourself, though.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, that's true. Gore from Madrid.
Hello, Gore. Welcome. And then we have one new person just joined, David. If you just say your name into the room, David.
Hello, David from Madrid.
Very good. Welcome all. So for those of you, especially who are new, our format is pretty consistently, we do a 31 or 2-minute meditation. I will guide it a little bit, but the majority of the time will be in silence to practice. And then it'll be followed by a little bit of a talk about meditation, and I've got just kind of some personal reflections that I was intending for today. And then we'll do a little walking meditation. And then after that, we have a period where we can answer any questions or hear other people who might want to say something. And honestly, if at any time except during the meditation you want to say something, just raise your hand. We have a new person, Augustina. Welcome, Augustina. So is anybody new to meditation? Okay, we're all expertos, huh? Expertas. So just a summary of what we normally do for our meditation is normally for the first 20 minutes or so, we are practicing a form of samatha, concentration or stability meditation. Just kind of trying to quiet the mind, stabilize the mind, using whatever anchor you prefer. We start with the body and generally go to the breath, but you can stay with the body. You can even use other objects if that's your practice. And then in the final 10 minutes, I usually change it up a little bit to a more open awareness, allowing whatever calls the mind's attention to be the anchor. And with this type of meditation, you can see, hopefully, the impermanence of things, the transient nature of phenomena. And so we often call that vipassana or insight meditation. And it's just one of many, many forms of vipassana meditation. So yeah, if there's no questions or anybody wants to say anything, we'll just launch right in. So Gore, I'm gonna mute you again there. To make sure we're on time, I will use our timer. So here we go. I can see many of you already have a nice posture. So this is so important to establish a comfortable yet dignified, you might say, posture. One that looks like you're meditating. As we develop the habit of meditating with a noble, dignified posture, just sitting in that position tells the mind, okay, it's time to practice. The mind becomes habituated to the posture, and the posture habituated to the mind. And we want the posture to be comfortable so we can maintain it, and so that the mind doesn't struggle. We want the mind to be able to relax. And we want the body to be able to relax, but not so relaxed we fall asleep. And of course, if you're in Spain right now or on that time zone, there might be some sleepiness. So if there is, we just try to keep the back straight, the body erect, the head up. So now, as this is a practice of awareness, let's become aware of what is around us, our surroundings. If you're in Saladana, you might be aware of other people sitting near you. You might be aware of sounds. If the air conditioning is on, maybe there's even movement in the air. Maybe sounds from the street. Hearing or listening is a wonderful entry point to mindfulness, to awareness. It's very receptive. So we just wait for sounds to come to our ears, to our eardrums. And now let's bring the attention into the body. Feel the physical form, the posture. Maybe noticing the weight of the body, the pressure or points of contact with the floor, the chair, the cushion. And we're trying not to conceptualize, we're trying not to think about this, but merely experience it with as little thought as possible. Not that we push thoughts away, but just direct your attention to the felt sense of your experience. What does it feel like? Now the body, the posture can make a very good anchor for your attention and a place to return to when the mind wanders away. So as soon as you notice that the mind had wandered away, you can celebrate that moment because now you're present once again. Then you can return the attention to the body. In the full body, the posture makes a very good anchor if there is a lot of energy in the body, if there's anxiety or excitement. give it some space. Have a broad attention. So now let's find the breath. So narrowing slightly the focus from the whole body to the breath within the body, the sensations of breathing. So you may notice the breath in the belly, in the chest, at the tip of the nostrils. You may notice the whole body moving because of the breath. So paying attention to the sensations caused by the breath, the movements. We want to feel our breath, experience it. Really notice, how is it to breathe? So the body breathing is another very good anchor for the attention, a little more narrow than the full body. But before you choose, let's now bring the attention to the breath at the nostrils. So narrowing the focus a little more to just focusing on the sensations of the breath at the nostrils, possibly on the upper lip. Now, if you're sleepy, drowsy, maybe even bored, I recommend that you let this be your anchor, this point of the breath at the nostril. And so we find our anchor, we choose one. Could be the whole body, the posture, the breathing body, the breath throughout the body, or the breath at the nostrils, or whatever practice you may have. Let's just practice for a while, which means, of course, coming back again and again and again. No pasa nada how many times we have to come back. This is the practice. Returning to this present moment with a smile, with curiosity, with kindness, with celebration. Pushing away nothing, just returning to your anchor. So hopefully the mind is a little more centered, more calm, stable, or maybe not, no problem. But if you want to explore a little bit with Vipassana, I invite you to allow whatever calls the attention of your mind to be your anchor. That is, we just rest our attention on whatever is most obvious. So maybe it's sensations in the body, specific sensations. Maybe there's even some pain in the body. Maybe a body part is sleeping, there's tingling. And if this is the most obvious thing, then you just rest your attention on that until something else arises that calls away the mind's attention. Maybe sounds, or maybe that breath was so nice to follow, so we just go back to the breath. And it could even be thought. So our attention is moving as phenomena call out. Or you can continue with the samatha practice of just working with the one anchor, the body or the breath. So we'll practice a little while longer. So as we come to the final moments of our formal practice, I invite you to return the attention back to the body. Re-infusing, you might say, filling the body with awareness. Noticing sensations, possibly different than they were at the beginning of our meditation. Maybe some lightness, maybe some discomfort in some body parts. And then imagine spreading or extending your attention, your awareness a little bit beyond your physical form into your, you might say, spiritual space, right? That little force field around you. Sometimes we can access it by feeling the skin. And then gathering this up and, if you're willing, bringing your attention to your heart space, just for a little closing gratitude practice. I often put my hands right on my chest so I can really be sure where the heart is. Feeling the heart and then thanking yourself for your practice, the goodness of your practice, thanking yourself for taking time out of your Sunday to connect with yourself in this way, to support others as they connect with their selves, and really self-care, so many levels. And then taking this gratitude, this goodwill, and extending it out in all directions, touching those in Saladana and those around us in our homes or wherever we might happen to be. And then imagine it just extending out, touching all of life. This goodwill, this wishes for all beings to be happy and safe and healthy. And when you hear the sound of the bell, which I'll ring 3 times, just noticing whatever arises in the mind, in the body. Well, thank you all very much. Thank you for your practice. Thank you for supporting my practice, showing up each Sunday, even on Zoom now for, gosh, what has it been? 2 years and 2 months. Crazy. So I'm just going to talk for a couple minutes about practice, about meditation, and feel free if you have any questions or comments to just raise your hand. I can see everybody except Anna. I think there might actually be somebody behind Martina too. I can't see, I'm not sure. And then of course I can see you guys on Zoom. And the thing I want to impart, because we can often get kind of confused about thinking, about the belief that many of us have that if we're thinking, then we're not meditating, or we're meditating badly, right? Or we're not doing it correctly. And the amount of thinking we do or not really is not in our control. It is really a matter of the unconscious, that we're not conscious of, deciding, very much based upon its habits, right? So if your mind or the mind has a habit of ruminating, of obsessing, of worrying, of planning, of thinking, then when we sit down and meditate, we're going to notice that. We're going to see, wow, there's lots of thought. But that doesn't mean you're not meditating. You are meditating. And you're noticing that there's lots of thought. Now, what can be kind of fun, I mean, it is fun, it's enjoyable for sure, and it's onward leading towards the ultimate goal, you might say, of freedom from suffering, is we'll find that we can train the mind to think less. And it isn't really like we're doing it. It's not like we really have that much control, but we can generate an intention, a desire, let's say, to be with the anchor, to be with the breath or the body, whatever we've decided is our anchor. And so we create some volition, some energy in that direction. We rest with the object, the anchor, maybe for 2 breaths or maybe 3 breaths or whatever it is. And then the unconscious goes, okay, long enough. And it grabs the attention and, off you go to some fantasy or some planning or some worrying or whatever. But the unconscious remembers, those 2 or 3 breaths were really quite pleasant. And it will then kind of wake up, or then we'll wake up. We'll go from being unconscious, lost in thought, to being conscious again, aware again. And then we go back to the breath. Now, the more time we could spend with the breath or the anchor, the body, whatever it is, the more your body, your nervous system, your chitta, as they say in Pali and Sanskrit, I believe chitta, mind, body, the nervous system is how one of my teachers puts it, remembers sati, that's mindfulness, right? Sati is the Pali word for mindfulness, which means to remember. It remembers, God, that was pleasant. That was kind of nice. Let's do it some more. I don't think it thinks exactly in those words, but it's kind of like that's the idea. And so even in a 30-minute sit, like a 32-minute sit like we just did, we can train the mind or lure the mind into the habit, albeit a brief habit, but the habit of being with the anchor. And maybe you'll get, by the end of 30 minutes, you might get 5 breaths. Or if you're practiced, you could even go 10 breaths without much thinking. And over time, we're training the mind more and more to be in the present moment and not lost in thought. The lost in thought is a default mode of the mind. This is the way we're built. The default mode. If we're not paying attention to something, it's just going to think. It's going to fantasize or, whatever. If we're not paying attention. But if we're paying attention to something, especially in a relaxed, curious way, then the thinking will stop. Now, this is the final thing I think I want to add about this, is the period of time when we're paying attention to an object is what I call cumulative. So let's say over a 10-minute period, your mind went on a little thinking vacation, a little thinking trip 50 times, but you came back 50 times and you spent 2 or 3 breaths with your anchor 50 times. Over that 10-minute period, you spent 100 or 150 breaths with your anchor. It's cumulative. And even as we get further down in the practice, not in the jhanas, the absorptions, because then thoughts are gone, but as we're getting closer to that, the period of time starts to stretch out, starts to grow, but the thinking is still there, but it starts to shrink. And maybe it's just 1 or 2 words. And so you're with your object, a couple little words come, but the mind is like, this thinking ain't all that great. I'm not going to think. I'm going to stay with the breath, or I'm going to stay with the body. And so more and more you're with it, even though the ego or the little self or whatever you want to call it, the inner child, it wants to talk, but the mind is like, nah, not interested. And more over time, we start to get more stability, more samadhi, more periods of peace. And the more we do it, the more the mind likes it, the more the unconscious likes it, and the easier it becomes, until pretty soon, even in our regular life, now we're more present. Right? Now, I'm going to transition to something that's going to be hard for me to talk about, but I'm going to do it because it was amazing. So on Tuesday, my mother passed away, and I was right there with her, holding her, my brothers as well. And it was like time slowed down, right? It was as if I'd been on retreat for a month. My mind was going so slow. And I was able to just be with her in the way that I'm describing, with very little thought. Now, unfortunately, there in the bed next to her, there was a curtain, but there was another patient at the hospital who had just received some very loud visitors. So it was almost like a perfect meditation teaching. These were East Coast, New Yorkers, very loud. And so they're right next to us in these final moments of my mother's life. And so, of course, my mind would go to their talking at times. And it would also go to thought like, I need to tell them to shut up, or something. And I would bring it back to being on her breath. Actually, the object was my mother's breath, right? I was following it. And what was amazing is, as I was present, as I was with my mother, there was no sadness or grief, really. It was just pure presence. And then I would notice a thought, a thought would come up, like, my mother's going to die. Or, this could be her last breath. Or there was a moment when the breath did stop for, 15, 20 seconds. And a thought came up. She's gone. And then the grief. Oh, just exploded, right? This dolor, this pena, just whoosh. But then I felt it, I experienced it. I didn't try to push it away. And then I went back, and then she breathed, she had another breath, and I went back to her breath, and then the grief stopped. And then it was not very many seconds later, or maybe a minute or something, it was clear that she had left her body. And again, it was the thought that caused the grief. And this is basically what the Buddha said, and this is what we now know in modern psychology, is that it's our thinking, it's our thoughts that really cause, 99.9% of our unhappiness, of our grief, of our fears, of our anger, of our lokeseya, right? It's our thinking. And that even something as important and as deep as the loss of one of our parents or one of our loved ones, right, we can be with, as I was, without losing myself in grief. Just be present with her. Tells me that it is so true. It's the thoughts. And that if we can just be present, which is why we practice, we can be with anything. And not to pretend that I really had anything to do with how she went, but it is possible that my presence and my calm presence assisted her in letting go. Because as many of you know, those of you who have come to listen to me for these 2 years on Zoom, and then 4 years before that in person, my mother was my favorite example of how not to be if you want to be happy. Right? Because my mother was a piece of work. She was super fussy, super critical, super judgmental, just nothing was ever perfect. And she was like that pretty much right to the very end, but started to joke about it, where she would even tell the nurse or the doctor, "I'm fussy," or "I'm feisty." But there, as some of you know, those of you who know some of the history of Buddhism and the stories we know, there were many examples, including of Ananda, who was the Buddha's cousin and his assistant. There's another word for his job where he cared for the Buddha as well, but he never reached enlightenment until his final breath. I mean, literally, I think he was like falling. He had been sitting, and then his body was falling to his death, right, to the end, and mid-fall, he became enlightened, fully enlightened, right? He reached nirvana. So what was interesting about my mother, who was this luchadora, I mean, she fought with everything, to the smallest thing, to the biggest thing. She was just fighting constantly. And yet, in that final couple hours or whatever it was, she let go. Right? And it was sort of like she could see, she was having a vision of something that called her attention, right? Something that attracted her. And she died with her eyes open, looking in my direction, just kind of gazing, half open, half closed, kind of like a Zen meditation, right? They're sort of gazing, with no struggle at all. And it really made me think and makes me think that we can do it at pretty much any time. We can let go. Not that we want to let go and die, because obviously, hopefully everybody there is listening is healthy. She died because her body gave out. We can let go, and with that letting go comes peace, comes this state of, you could call it a form of happiness. I rarely read poems. I know nothing about poems, but there is a poem I'd like to read to you by a very famous poet who was also my mother's age, had born a year before my mother and died a couple years before. Her name is Mary Oliver. And just so you guys can follow along, I'm gonna share screen. See, where did I do with it? I think it's here. So can you see a poem, The Summer Day by Mary Oliver? Everybody can see that, right? Okay. So I'll just read it and you guys can read along. Summer Day. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? I love that poem on so many levels. And thinking of my mother, about maybe it was an hour and a half before she went, the nurses cleaned her up. They washed her, they put her on her side and gave her fresh white sheets. And her little head was just sticking up, and they cleaned her face and I combed her hair. She looked so cute and so peaceful. And that grasshopper reminded me of her, with her pale forearms, because she was pale. And she floated off, right? Not long afterwards. My mentor who actually sits with people as they're going, he runs an organization called the Living Dying Project. He talks about how the self, this ego, drops away in these final moments, right? But with my mother, true to form, so as she's laying there with this fresh white sheet over her and her little head sticking out, she said, "There's some lipstick in my purse. Can you please get it?" course, her purse had been at home for the last 2 months. And so, and me being the silly pragmatist or realist, I guess that I am, I said, Mom, your purse is at home. But the nurse grabbed some chapstick, just some regular moisturizer, right? Says, oh no, we have some. And put some chapstick on my mother's lips. So her little ego, who wanted to look good, right to the final moments, was still kind of there. But then she flew away. And this wild, right, life that is ours, this incredible mystery. It's like, what the hell? Why are we even here? What are we? I just hope that we embrace it, right? And see it for what it really is, which is a mystery. It's just a big question mark, which in Spain, it's 2 question marks, one at the beginning of the sentence and one at the end. That's even better. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Thank you very much for listening. Why don't we do a little 6-minute kind of walking meditation? Chance to spread our legs and feel our bodies. Feel our bodies, no? So for those of you who might be new to walking, here we put our attention in our feet touching the ground, right? This is our anchor. And then when thoughts come, we notice, no problem, thank you, back to the feet touching the ground. And in the room, try to go the narrow way. So we're all kind of going the same direction. We don't have a Greek traffic jam or something. I'm going to walk too. Thank you again for your practice, and hope you enjoy the walking meditation. I'm just going to make one other comment about grief, really, and then we'll have a few minutes to open it up if anybody wants to share or have any questions. And that is from a Buddhist perspective, grief is just another arising phenomena, something that arises due to causes and conditions, such as loss, right? And there's nothing bad about grief or grieving, and not necessarily anything good about it either, right? It's not, it's just another arising phenomena, a sankhara, you might say. And, there's an interesting legend or story that when the Buddha when he died, like half the Sangha was so upset. I mean, they were just weeping and really beside themselves. And then the other half of the Sangha was, you might say, stoic or somewhat unaffected. And this is the kind of the difference in argument between whether the Buddha was saying that this sense of no self or non-attachment should be so complete that we're not even bothered when somebody dies, versus the other argument that no, we do grieve. This is part of the human condition. We grieve, we feel sad when there's loss, and it's quite all right to express it. I tend to kind of go in that direction, and to be careful about the feeding, of the loss. This is really where we then can cause ourselves suffering, is if we, think about it too much, obsess about it. And this applies to pretty much everything, right? So the idea is to be present with it, feel it, cry if you have to cry. I mean, crying is probably nature's way of us discharging grief and loss and pain and so forth. This is how we do it as human beings. Animals shake and we cry. And, to let it run its course, to permit it to be, to allow it to be. Anyway, so just in case there was any confusion on that, and again, this is my view, and I'm pretty sure it's in modern, especially Western Buddhist belief, I would say this is probably the direction that most people would point us towards, experiencing, feeling our grief, but not feeding it. Anyways, we have a few minutes. Is there anybody who would like to share, or maybe have a question about practice, or, whatever?
Yes, so Jim, there's a question, but I would.
Yeah. We probably need to get the microphone someday working again, but please.
Okay.
Quite close.
I'm here.
The mic is here.
I see. I'm Linda.
Hi.
The walking meditation took me for surprise. I'm at the practice of going around in a circle in the room. So I don't know what was going on there. I may have walked in front of people.
No
I don't know if you
problem.
want to talk about that more, about what you tell people about how to practice walking.
Yeah, sure. I could do that. So the circle, I think, is probably with the Thich Nhat Hanh group, and maybe in Zen practices. I think some Zen practices, they do that too. We tend to try to follow more of the Thai forest tradition, or, it's kind of evolved really in the United States, of walking, say 2 or 3 meters only, and then just turning around and walking back. So you're not going anywhere, and we're not following anybody. But, it is interesting that Saladana works very good for a circle walk as well. I know they do that on Friday with the Thich Nhat Hanh group. But yeah, we just tend to follow these. It's kind of a Theravada, a really more probably Thai forest tradition style of walking. Very short distance, very slowly, just back and forth, going nowhere. Thank you. And the way though that I'm trying to explain, or I think the best way, so we don't have people bumping into each other or even too worried about people crossing their paths, is to do it in the width way, the narrower, I guess width, yeah, and everybody in a line. But I'll explain it more completely next time. I'll try to keep that in mind. Anyone else? Any other questions or comments?
Jim, just more of a comment. First of all, thank you for sharing your story and experience, and sorry for your loss.
Thank you, Damien.
The Spanish, the lo siento, actually expresses it kind of more in terms of feeling. And just to say, I think with death and mortality, and so it's something that we tend to put aside and not want to think about, and not want to think about how we deal with it, and particularly with grief as well. And I think the approach that you described sounds so healthy, if that's, I don't know the right word, but just because of the fact that it's taking that mindful approach that's looking at what's happening as it's happening, and not judging it, not pushing it away. It's that sort of meditative approach seems such a healthy approach to dealing with the one thing we all have to deal with. So, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you, Damien. Yeah, that is a very correct observation, especially in the West. We do tend to try to ignore it. We don't like to talk about it. And I think I even mentioned this to my kids, my daughters, right? I said my Buddhist meditation is really what prepared me for this. Not even just my meditation, but it's really kind of a Buddhist perspective. And there are many even meditations that are specifically around death. And I think they are ultimately so helpful. And I will just say something about my mother's going. I believe that she went consciously, right? Where she knew what was happening. She was aware right to the very end. And who knows, what happens once that energy leaves the body, whether awareness continues. In some philosophies, our finite kind of one person awareness joins this infinite awareness, which is a very beautiful way of looking at it, I think. And I hope I can. I don't want to die in my sleep, honestly. I want to be there for it, and she did that. She was awake. She was aware right to the very end. I'm quite sure. Thank you, Damien. Anyone else? Well, if no one else, why don't we do a metta or loving kindness, goodwill meditation to end. And again, for those of you in Saladana who might be new to this, so in this meditation, we use phrases. Actually, it can also be a concentration practice where ultimately you stop using phrases, but initially we use phrases where we wish good things for ourselves and others, right? So I just do it with a standard 4 wishes, which is to be happy, to be well, to be safe, and to be at ease, to live with ease. So we'll start with ourselves. We'll go to what is called a benefactor, which is somebody or some being that you just really cherish and love and look up to. And then a difficult person, and then all beings. Okay, so I'll say these phrases out loud, and then you can say them to yourself mentally. So again, finding that comfortable posture. Again, on this one, I often put my hands on my chest, my heart center, heart space. This is considered a heart practice, this metta. So we'll start with I, me. May I be happy. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be safe. May I live with ease. So now the second group would be somebody or some being, doesn't have to even be a human being, can be an animal, a pet, that or who you really look up to, love unconditionally, could be a public figure. Just bring somebody to mind where there's no conditionality at all. It's just no problem. I like this person. And I'm going to use the second person, you. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be safe. May you live with ease. And now the difficult person, the difficult being. So don't pick the most difficult person in the world, like Putin or something, maybe. But just somebody maybe who hurts your feelings, you have a little resentment, maybe said or did something you wish they had not. I'm going to use the pronoun he for this one. May he be happy. May he be well. May he be safe. May he live with ease. And now all beings in all directions without exception. May all beings be happy. May all beings be well. May all beings be safe. May all beings live with ease. And finally, in the tradition of renunciation, of letting go, of generosity, we offer up the fruit of our practice today, the teachings, our Sangha, our Buddha nature. Offer these up to the benefit of all beings. May all beings be happy and peaceful, healthy and strong, safe and protected. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering, free from war and violence, discrimination, racism, and poco a poco free from coronavirus. And may all beings find their path, find their steps towards the end of suffering. May all beings be free. Well, thank you all very much. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening and participating. Just a couple of quick announcements. The first one around dana, which is a Pali Sanskrit word that means generosity or giving. And we at Saladana practice generosity by offering all of our sessions without any sort of charge. Teachers do it from their hearts. And you also, and this is a tradition going back, 2,600 years and earlier even, but that's to the time of the Buddha. And participants can also practice generosity. You can help us clean up and keep Saladana nice and clean. It's really a public space, and it's our space, and everybody can help us make it the best little urban meditation yoga center in Europe or beyond. And then you can also leave a financial donation for us. We do have expenses. There's a box in the entryway there where you could leave a donation. You can also do it via BISM or a transferencia. There's information on the board near the library and also on our website. And all donations are appreciated. And then I also want to just let people know we have a retreat coming up in 3 weeks, in which the one kind of good thing with my mother passing is now my schedule is more, I can actually make a schedule now. So I'll be back. I'll be a little jet lagged, but I'll be back a couple days before it starts. Anyways, that's the 23rd to the 27th of May with a Mexican-American monk named Bhante Sanata Vihari. And it's in Comunidad of Madrid in Galapagar. And hope you all can make that. It will be in Spanish, although he speaks English better than me. So you can also talk to him in English. And yeah, that's all I have. Nacho, do you have anything you want to share, or? You're good? Okay, Martina.
No, nothing. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you for your service, Martina. Thank you for being our technician. I'll stay on for a few moments if anybody wants to say anything to me, but otherwise I hope to see you all next week, and buena práctica, and have a good week. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Un abrazo, Jim.
Thank you, Javier.
Take care.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.
Yeah, Jim, I just want to send you a hug also. I'm sorry for your loss. Lo siento mucho.
Thank you very much.
To see you soon back in Madrid.
Yeah, I hope so.
Bye-bye.
Okay, chicos. Hasta luego.